I do my push-ups and crunches. Bitches get lucky, can't touch me. You ain't Sandusky. Chinatown, roll up that sushi. Rap for $1 if you lucky. I get no fucks what you think. Philly ain't always that sunny. Playing the field, it gets muddy. Rush streeters popping, these hockeys be hustling. Red hit the street, bring it in like a huddle. I didn't really want it was forced like a fumble. Victim to the circumstances of the struggle. I'm gonna make it out cause I got haters. Kill, gotta kill, count the bodies later. She play on my chest. I'm getting bored with this, yes. We playing chess on the board with this, yes. We got connection, but it's going left.
Hello everyone, I'm Isaac Ewell, the CEO of 100, and it is my distinct honor and pleasure to have with us today Josh Valentine, the creative director and founder of Saint V, a new fashion line, streetwear line launching. And it's also my distinct honor and pleasure because Josh was once formerly an intern for 100. He was actually our first intern, pretty much coming in and helping us fix our social media, edit all kinds of terrible photos that were taken and making things that were pretty ugly look a lot prettier. So I'm overwhelmed to see his success and see how far he's come from a few years ago to finally launching his brand, Saint V. So we're about to hop right into it and interview Josh, talk about the evolution of his brand and where we see Saint V going and what Josh is going to be doing big things in the future. So Josh, man, this is exciting. So you're launching.
It's great to be here.
Yeah, brother. Yeah, it's very exciting, man. I just am, I'm overcome with joy just to see where you are and all the hard work that you put in. And so tell us a little bit about Saint Valentine, man. What can we expect?
Yeah, as you know, Saint Valentine has been in the process of getting started up in the past year and a half since I dropped out of the University of Pittsburgh. And that was like when I first started. I'm actually wearing the jeans that I first tailored and distressed. And so that's like when I got into fashion, and at that point I was like, okay, this is something. Like I think I might have to get into this. And so throughout my first year at Parsons, just diving into fashion and figuring out kind of what my style was, and where I wanted to go with my own brand, because I knew I wanted to start a brand coming into Parsons. I didn't have any other idea of what I wanted it to be past the fact that I knew I needed a brand, because I love fashion and I love business, and seeing you do your thing with the whole entrepreneurial stuff, and getting into the men's lifestyle world, wanted to go that direction. And so Saint V came about in the spring, I think around February is when I started to 2018 this past February.
Right.
Yeah. That's when I got the name for it, and I started taking classes where I was actually sewing and making garments, and threw Saint V on one of my pieces, and everyone loved it. And I was like, okay.
I love that piece. I remember you're talking about the army jacket. Yeah, that was crazy.
Yeah. So from then, I just rolled with it.
You and I met, when you were a junior in high school.
2014.
2014, right? You were a junior in high school.
4 years.
For your junior project.
Yeah.
Was that it?
Yeah. It was that first month. We worked that one day. Yeah.
Right.
That was that one day. I think Sam was.
That's right. Sam was in town. That's
we
right.
Picked him up from the airport.
and you wore him out. So you just looking at the evolution of just you and the trajectory, right? So you and I meet your junior year of high school. You do your junior project. Then you start interning with 100 in a number of different ways, right? Pretty much coming in being a utility player,
just
right?
Doing
whatever, and which we really needed. And so. Then you graduated, and you went to Pitt. So talk a little bit about that, because you mentioned that, and I think it's very important. And just kind of
that was huge for me. Going to Pittsburgh, I had no idea what I wanted to do with my life. As you know, in high school, baseball was.
Right.
I was just that was my only focus. I would go to school, I would do my school stuff, but I was really just there to go play baseball at the end of the day. And so when high school ended and I didn't have baseball, I went to the University of Pittsburgh, and I took everything. I took history classes, philosophy classes, computer science, photography, business classes, you name it. I took a class in it. I didn't go to class much, but but I took a class, and just winded up feeling like I was in the wrong place. And I didn't totally know why that was, but I had started to get really depressed. So after my first year, I went back for a second year, and about, I think, a month or two in, that's when I dropped out, and I was just dealing with some serious depression and a lot of toxic stuff going on in my life, the place I was living, the people I was around. I love those guys, but we were not good for each other.
That's smart to realize that.
Yeah, and so dropping out was huge for me. I still think it's the best decision I've ever made in my life. And so when I dropped out, I had all this free time, and I had no hobby. I didn't know what my thing was. I didn't know what I loved to do. And so my friend Julian McFarland, who you know, he had a sewing machine. I was like, yo, bro, let me borrow that sewing machine. And because I had a bunch of pants laying around like these ones, they were a little bit off. Like I wanted them to be perfect. I wanted to fit perfectly, look just how I had the vision. And so I taught myself how to sew on YouTube. And yeah, so that pit was one of the hardest times in my life, but it was the biggest in terms of me growing into being able to start my own brand and doing well at Parsons.
And it sounds like, it was necessary, right?
Yeah.
So it's so interesting how some of your most difficult times, and you're trying to figure some things out, but you don't realize while you're going through it, it's preparing you for the next phase. I guess, what's the saying? What you go through today is prepares you for tomorrow. Good, man. So you mentioned the Parsons. So you get into Parsons, and now, since being at Parsons, what was the class, or was there a certain project that really was like, you know what, I can be here. I can play in this game.
Yeah, definitely. So when I got in, they have like the admitted students Facebook page, and it was really intimidating because you're seeing these kids who are like 17 years old, 18 years old. They've got full like lines of clothes out and crazy paintings and stuff, and so I'm like, all right, I've taken a photography class. I'm really behind, and so I was really intimidated that I was gonna be way behind and have a lot of catching up to do. In terms of just, because Parsons first year, you take everything. You're taking sculpture classes, you're working with wood, you're working with plaster, you're doing all the digital stuff, Premiere, Illustrator, Photoshop, you're drawing, you're doing collage work. So you really get like a well-rounded education that first year, and I only had photography.
Right.
So I was really intimidated coming into first year, and I think the first class, one of my first classes was Space and Materiality, and that one was more sculptures, and my teacher was awesome, and I think the first project we did was plaster, and that was the one where I was like, okay, like I made this, I don't know, you might have seen it. I made like the Black Power fist of my hand. I molded my hand 4 times, and it just felt natural, like picking up the arts, and then went on to make a really dope wood piece of a head with the little squares coming out of it. And so I was just picking up these skills that I had never known I had really quickly. And so that's when I started to feel comfortable. I was like, okay, I'm going to be able to do this. And I was right in line with everyone else who had been taking art their whole lives. And so that's when I felt like I was confident that I was going to be able to excel at Parsons.
Right.
Yeah.
That's great. No, that's great, man. I don't even feel like there was a stumbling block. I feel like as soon as you got there, I started seeing, all these posts, you had your photo,
my art Instagram,
right, your art Instagram, which was super impressive in the work that you were doing. So all right, man. So there's so many different ways. I want to talk about the Valentine piece, but also want to talk about when I look at your work, this first design, which is very impressive. Who are some of your biggest influences? Individuals and brands.
Yeah. Well, number one, right here.
That wasn't staged. That was not even. Oh man.
No, I mean, because you were the first.
Oh, thank you.
And I remember, like, because when I first started interning with you, like, I liked clothes. I liked to look fresh, you know, and do my thing. But I wasn't really my focus. And so I remember, I think, around the time that I started tailoring my pants, I remember just being like, man, I've been doing this for like 3 years. Like, I've been in this fashion world, and it's all because of you. And I mean, seeing you like drop everything to start up One Hunted, that's like, you're crazy.
That's right. Yes, I am.
But I mean, and it's so inspiring to see you doing your thing, and having been in and out of helping One Hunted for the past 4 years. Like, it's really inspiring. So you, first and foremost, are like, you were my intro to fashion and my intro to entrepreneurship, and so you're right up there at the top.
No, I appreciate that. I did not. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
I received it.
Other influencers, though, let's see. I think the first fashion designer that I found on Instagram when I started getting into it and was like doing some research was this guy Chris Stamped.
You put me on the Chris Stamped.
Yeah, I did. And he's based out in LA. He's got a shop down in Fairfax now. But he's dope. The work he does with streetwear. Like, I love his clothes. I love his eye for design. But even more importantly, what really inspires me about him is that he's branching out. And he's working with guys like Daniel Arsham, who's like an architect, sculptor, another inspiration of mine. And he just did a collaboration with IKEA, making lights. And so that's one of the things that
Chris Stamp?
Yeah, Chris Stamp. And so that's one of the things I really want to do with my brand, is I want to have a very versatile brand, and I want to be able to make like furniture and sculpture work, as well as clothes, and collaborate with different artists. That's something that's really important to me. So seeing him doing all that stuff, that was like the first time I had seen that, and I was like, yo, like, you can make clothes, you can collaborate with IKEA,
right?
You can work with an architect, like, that's awesome. And I want to just be in a world of a bunch of different types of creatives. I don't want to just be with fashion people. And so he was a huge inspiration. And through him, I found Ronnie Feig of Kith. And I mean, his story's awesome. I can't remember the store that he was working at in New York, but he was working for
David Z's.
Yeah, that's it.
Z's.
And so he worked there for something like 15 years,
right,
and was doing some design work of shoes. Went on to set up his own thing, and in 6 years made Kith what it is today. And so stories like that, I love those stories of people, particularly in guys like Virgil Abloh, who just started with a t-shirt,
right,
and didn't have the Parsons background, and just did their thing and grinded it out and created something as big as Off-White and Kith. Like, that's crazy.
And I love that you use the term creative, because your vision and for yourself and the brand is much larger than fashion, right? You're talking about a creative director, you know, which is what I'm seeing a lot more of these guys like a Virgil or, you know, Chris Stamp. Like, when you start being able to influence design and furniture or whatever's happening at IKEA with him, that's a grander, you know, a much larger plan, which I love that you're not limiting yourself to, you know, because I think some people will be like, oh, well, he's launching a t-shirt line. Are there a lot of t-shirts? You're like, no, this is bigger than fashion. This is bigger. It's about how do I put my stamp on a few different places, a few different industries.
Yeah, like Saint Valentine it's not a clothing brand in the traditional sense. Like, I want it to be, Saint Valentine is me, it's my brand.
That's right.
And through it, I want to do clothes, but I've got some crazy stuff I want to do, but like, I want to get into music. I want to work with rappers and singers, have them wearing Saint Valentine clothes in music videos on stage. I'd love to like sponsor concerts, throw parties and stuff like that, and doing sculpture work, doing home furniture, getting into like men's care, like facial care products, stuff like that. Just doing everything. Like, I want to create this whole lifestyle.
That's dope.
Inspired by you.
That's hot. I love that, man, because I'm seeing it, and the beauty I'm seeing, like you're talking about ASAP and his influence. I think he serves as a creative director for a few other brands, and even like set design. I mean, I've seen, you know, guys like, you know, like yourself going and be like, okay, it should look like this, you know, getting behind the scenes and giving a video or a concept or a layout, because you have a design eye. That's what you're bringing to it. Like, so this is just one product that you produce. Like, so you can produce all these other products. I'm looking forward to all these different. We have to have you come in, and we have to get a collaboration in 100 when we launch our.
Of course.
I love it, man.
I was already thinking about that.
Of course you were. Listen, of course you were. The other thing that I didn't want to get off of this point, and I really appreciate your courage and willingness to take. I mean, your whole brand for me, as you as my dude, and watching you grow, there's a courageousness in your decision making, right? To leave Pitt, right? Because that takes a lot of courage, right? And then, you know, you're gonna have to talk to your parents about that, right? That's not an easy conversation to have.
Not at all.
And to go to Parsons and, you know, work through your fears. But the other piece, there's something that you said that I think is extremely important, that I think men, and I don't want to generalize, but people in general can have a hard time with, and that's mental illness and depression, right? And I really appreciate that you're so transparent and forthcoming about that as a young, you know, man of color in this world. Can you talk about that, man, a little bit? One,
definitely.
Why you're so comfortable sharing that. Also, how you work through it, or how you continue to work through it.
Yeah, definitely. So I mean, I've had depression for probably since middle school. I think, like, in lower school, I went to Green Street Friends, Quaker school. And I mean, when you're a kid, like, you don't care about anything. You're just running around having a good time. But then that changed to Wissahickon was really hard for me, and ended up getting bullied a lot.
Wissahickon Charter.
Wissahickon Charter, right. So I ended up getting bullied a lot, especially for being light-skinned in a community that was mostly black, being told I wasn't black enough.
Love your tattoo. We have to definitely make sure we get a highlight of that.
But so and that's kind of where I started struggling with depression, and I never really addressed it throughout middle school, throughout high school. I ignored it because there is that stigma around it that it's not okay, especially in men of color. And I think the first time that I...
Okay, we're good. Just start that sentence over.
All right.
For the first time you told
so the first time I told anyone about it was that week when I was thinking about dropping out. Talking to my mom and crying on the phone. I know I called her like a couple times that week, and was just like, I was in a bad place mentally, and I knew, like, that was the point in my life where I knew, like, okay, I have to do something about this. And so the first step for me was dropping out of Pitt, because I knew that just wasn't the place for me. And especially as a creative, like, I need to be in a place where my mind is being stimulated all the time, and I'm around people who are doing inspiring work. And yeah, so that's when I, like, first kind of, I guess, put it out in the world, but also accepted it for myself. And so I started working with a life coach, which isn't a therapist. It's like a therapist, but for the business side of life, helping you figure out how to work towards your goals, how to organize your life, and get on track with your career. In my case, it was school and figuring out how to deal with dropping out and working these odd jobs, and still being happy and working towards something bigger than just delivering food every day, because that's what I was doing back then. And so I got in a really, really good place through working with him, Hayden Lee. He's a guy out in LA. Little shout out to him because he was awesome.
That's great.
And so then I came to Parsons, and that first semester, I was just all work and just went all in. Got involved in starting a club up, hall council at my dorm, and was working honestly too hard. And so that second semester, my depression kicked back in. And all of my second semester, and still now, I'm still like working out of this rut that I was in. And that was a realization for me that the depression is something that you're gonna have to work with, and figuring out how to find that balance in life is really important. Because one of my weaknesses is I'll get too deep into things. Like that first semester, I wasn't sleeping well, like I was working way too much, didn't have much of a social life, I was just working, and that wasn't healthy for my mental health.
Right.
It was great for Saint Valentine and getting to the point where like I had the foundation and the arts down, but you especially can't be an entrepreneur and creative if you're depressed all the time. And so these past couple months have been really important for me. While I've been doing all this work with Saint Valentine, what I've been doing more of is just focusing on my mental health. I started meeting with a therapist a month and a half ago, and so I meet with him every week and just working through that stuff, working through my emotions that I've just kind of pushed aside for the past 10, 15 years.
Right.
And that's something I really want to bring awareness to in creatives, especially because your work it's so important to have a clear mind as a creative. And I think a lot of creatives struggle with depression and mental illness on some level because your work is who you are.
Right, so personal.
It's really personal. So yeah, just being aware of it and accepting it and knowing that there's other people out there that are struggling with it, it's really important. I want to bring awareness to that, definitely.
That's huge, man. I mean, I wanted to make sure we got back to that because I don't think enough people are honest about that. They talk about it, and I've shared with you like my challenges. And being an entrepreneur adds on top of being a creative. So we're both working in this space where not only being creative but being entrepreneurial, right? So it's a double, and those things are both very stressful. And then I have being a parent and a husband. So, but no, and you just you also have the pressures that you put on yourself. You're still a student. And you're trying to get it done, and so kudos to you, man, and salute. And because that's not an easy thing to be upfront and honest about. And I'm wondering, I realize when I share with my friends, male or female, about my challenges that I've had with feeling up and feeling down, feeling depressed, feeling anxious, it tends to free them up a little bit more too to talk. Have you found that to be the case with some of your friends?
Yeah, I think with some of them, definitely it opens up conversation because you're being open,
right?
And so many people will hide that because the stigma around it is that it's weak,
right?
And that's something that needs to change. But yeah, it definitely opens up conversation, and I'm very upfront about it. Just in terms of like, if you meet me and we talk a couple times, you'll probably hear about it.
It's nothing to be ashamed of. It's nothing to hide. And I think actually, to me, it endears. So when I think about a brand and what's behind a brand, if the designer, the creator behind it is this person who's living, being honest and transparent, and I know that what he's infusing, his own personal peace, love, what he wants to see more in the world, like that to me becomes like a distinction, right? Of this brand, like why I would buy this t-shirt over this particular t-shirt, because there's a certain type of heart that it's gone into the thinking of that.
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm trying to do. It's like, you couldn't have worded it better. I'm actually planning to start a YouTube. This will be the first video. But then I want to start a YouTube documenting, kind of like a weekly vlog type thing, where I'm documenting what's going on with Saint Valentine, but also what's going on in my life. Because I think there's so many entrepreneurs out there that have social medias or YouTubes that are showing their success.
Right.
And and one of the things that I've been looking for, like, I do a lot of like looking on YouTube for like clothing startups, entrepreneurial stories and stuff, because it's nice to hear other people's experiences.
Right.
And the one thing that you don't really see is someone in it at that time, letting you see their success, letting you see if they fail, letting you see everything. So I want to start a channel that's about just like, you're going to see exactly what goes into Saint Valentine. If it fails, you'll see it fail. If it succeeds, you'll see it succeed. If I'm having a down week and I'm not getting much work done, you'll see that. If I'm going really hard and I'm waking up early and I'm on my shit, you'll see that. But just giving you the 360 view of what's going into it. So that, like you were saying, you can feel attached to it in a different way than just a piece of clothing. Like, you're buying into a lifestyle.
That's right. Yeah, no, that's dope, man. You're keeping it 100. Like, literally, I think when you're that honest, which is like the core, as you know, of our brand, is like, people don't give me a fake avatar life. Don't just show me all the good stuff in your life, like, which a lot of people do on social media, which is why I've struggled, as you know, with social media. I don't want to just show all the highlights, because nobody's life is a highlight reel.
Yeah.
We have ups and downs. And so I appreciate that, man. I think you're right. It will endear your fans of your brand in a different way than they do to, you know, just a brand name, right? Because that's not what you're trying. You're just not trying to be a brand name. You're really, a lifestyle is really real. So, man, I mean, I get, you know, I'm trying not to get too emotional because I'm so proud, man. And so just of your evolution as a young man, and seeing what you're putting into this, it has a certain sense of integrity to it that a lot you just don't hear from young men, young people of your age. Again, not to generalize, but, you know, I've kind of been, you know, had a front row seat to a lot of what's been going on the last several years, and to see where you are right now, I can only imagine what you're going to be, you know, as you learn yourself more, as you learn the business more, as you evolve. It's just beautiful.
I gotta stay clean like a monster. I'm from the city of Gotham. Learn to stay in the pocket. I turn that beat to a whopper. Then they mash up, fuck a Mac 10. Got a MacBook, push your dad off. I'm a good look, surprise in the eyes. My story really that truck. Yeah. Almost 11, she tell me come get it. Yeah. Gotta stay ready, hey, getting ready. Louis V on my belt check. Louis V on my belt check. Louis V on my belt check. Don't let me check. Yeah.